Illinois' agriculture station, WHOW, that you can hear our show weekday mornings from 10 to 11 on WHOW's many platforms. On the Big 1520 across central Illinois, 92.3 FM in DeWitt County, and now on 106.5 FM in Logan County, and on the WHOW app. AgriTalk on WHOW.
If you guessed that was the sound of a bag of Pioneer brand A-Series soybeans, you guessed right. Well, kinda. It was really the sound of an innovative team that spent decades perfecting a seed with exclusive genetics and the ultimate agronomic advantage. The sort of breeders who don't rest until they've achieved outstanding performance. Pioneer brand A-Series soybeans. #1 for a reason. Visit pioneer.com/genetics.
It's time to think farm safety.
When it comes to teaching your children about safety issues on the farm, a hands-on approach works best. Children learn by example, and they learn by doing. So let them accompany you on a safety inspection of your farm. Show them where the dangers lie and how to avoid them.
This week and every week in 2023, think and practice safety first.
Brought to you by Piatt County Farm Bureau in Monticello. For more information, visit their website, PiattCountyFarmBureau.com.
For the latest in Central Illinois agricultural news, visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Get updated information on markets, weather, ag news, local interviews with NAFB farm broadcaster Jared White, and much, much more. All at IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Connexus will provide local, reliable, affordable, and speed-of-light fiber internet to Clinton. Get on the install list now by clicking the Connexus icon at DeWittDailyNews.com. Fiber internet is coming to Clinton. Get on the install list now.
Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in this segment of the morning show is Mr. Fred Lamkey, Superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools. Good morning, Mr. Lamkey. How are you, sir?
We're doing just great, Seth. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for making time for us. It's always good to have you. We appreciate that very much. How's the school year going? I know we're probably, where are we at? 6-7 weeks in? Where do we stand? How's school going?
Yeah. I haven't even stopped to really count the weeks, but we're about 5 or 6 weeks in. Yeah, it's going well.
It feels. Go ahead. Sorry.
You hate to talk too much about it when things are going so well, but the teachers doing great, the kids are doing awesome. Things is going as it should. The weather's been awesome, so it's really a great start to the year.
Very good, very good. It's been a blur, but kind of a grind at the same time. I don't know why I say that, but it feels like it's been a little bit of both on those things. But either way, here we are towards the end of September, and Mr. Lamkey, I know that for the last couple of years, you and I have talked pretty extensively about the renovations that you've been doing on your school buildings, and the investment you've made into your facilities. And it sounds like more of that to come. Give us a little background, though. What have you done, and where is Mount Pulaski Schools headed next? How about this?
Yeah, well, it's pretty amazing, Seth. My previous 30 years in education, I've been a part of maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 major construction renovation projects. And since I've been at Mount Pulaski, it's one after one, another each year. So the board just approved at this week's meeting that we're going to do renovation projects at our high school. So some people may say, well, you just build a new high school, but the 1963 building has the original science lab equipment and classrooms. We haven't done anything with our ag shops. We have some windows and some roofing issues going on there. So we're really looking at putting the finishing touches on the high school, and it will be predominantly completed with everything updated, new, and ready to roll. So we're excited about that project. Like I said, the chem lab, the biology lab, and our art rooms are all going to get facelifts and be updated. Again, the equipment's still retro from 1963 in some of the cases. And then we have a great ag program with Ralph Allen, and we're going to give him some updates in his shop classroom too, to kind of catch him up with the times.
Sure. Very good. Very good. Mr. Lamkey, when it comes to these updates, talk to me a little bit about where the state of Mount Pulaski schools were at. Was there a plan in place for some of these things? How about that?
Yeah, every year we approve a capital projects plan, and it's a fluid plan. It can change from year to year. But yeah, we've had this on our ever since the construction time, we knew we wanted to renovate our science classroom, but we had to get through the finances of construction. We had to wait and see what our reserves were going to look like. And we finally got to the point where we're comfortable enough that we can step out there and then get this project done. And again, we're looking at it being about a $1.2 million project. And we're not going to have to go to the taxpayers. We're going to be able to do this with our current funds and reserves that we have and pay for it in full.
How are you able to do that, Mr. Lamkey? How are those balances so healthy?
Well, when I came to Mount Pulaski, our EAV was about $119 million for our school district. And in the time that I've been here with the wind farm additions, we've gone up to $174 million. So that added EAV is allowing us to do more, but requiring less of the taxpayers. So, for example, our last construction project before we built the high school was in 2006. We did an $800,000 renovation to the high school that added 2 classrooms and a cafeteria. And when they did that, that added 11 cents of tax onto the taxpayers' levy that they had to pay to cover the cost of that building. Now, in the last 5 years, by the time we're done with this project, we will have spent around $20 million updating our district. And the increase on our taxpayers from 2018 is 15 cents. So that added revenue that we're getting from the wind farms is allowing us to do the needed updates. Prior to 2006, there wasn't a major project done at Mount Pulaski since 1972 when we added on to the grade school. So some much needed renovations. It's a great opportunity for us. We want to make sure that we give our students and our teachers the best instructional environment we can, so we keep moving forward.
Mr. Lamkey, I know that you get the 1 cent sales tax dollars I don't know if you spill into Macon County or not that far east in Logan County, but I'm sorry. I'm just like thinking out loud here. Sorry about that. I'm curious, like between the 1 cent sales tax dollars and then the wind farm dollars, like what's the breakdown of what you get from those revenue sources each year?
Basically, from the 1 cent sales tax, we're in 5 counties. We're in DeWitt, Macon, Logan, Sangamon, and Menard counties. So it is just us having that small section of Macon County that allows us to get that sales tax. Now Logan County has it as well, but we've had it before. But what it does is it brings in probably about $350,000 a year through sales tax revenues. Now, of that $350,000, when we built our high school, we did alternate bonds to finish the construction and get some of the things we needed. So we pledge about $200,000 of that each year to pay off alternate bonds. But it still leaves us $150,000 every year that comes through that we can add to our projects. And we have options too of like funding our SRO officer with that and some other things for the needs of the school district. As far as the wind farm, it's probably added about $1.2 million to our ed fund each year that we didn't have 5 or 6 years ago. And that's what allows us to do our projects here. And of course, it adds across to our building fund and all the other funds reap benefits from it as well. But the ed fund being our largest fund, that's where we're getting that money and allowing us to do the things that we are doing.
Well, and you keep, continue, like Logan County continues to add to that wind farm, right? I mean, it's like you had the base wind farm, then they added the extension. Now there's like a third one coming in, if I'm not mistaken. There might even be a fourth one, if I remember right. I could be wrong. I could be over exaggerating that, but
we came in with the Topper wind farm, and then we had the Whitney Hill. And right now we're working on the Top Hat wind farm, which lies directly east of the school district. They're just doing some real basic work for the roads to prepare for, I believe, the work that's going to really take place next summer and next fall. And then also there is I believe it's called the Panther Creek wind farm, which is going to go in just on the west side of the interstate of Elkhart. And all together between the two new wind farms, we're probably going to bring in somewhere around 40 to 50 new turbines. They tell you where they're supposed to be, but until they actually put them up, you don't actually know what you're going to get because plans do change in the middle.
Gotcha. And of course, those depreciate. I know we talked about this, I think last month, in fact, a little bit, but those depreciate. What is your anticipation for the not only when they start to depreciate, but how much they'll depreciate? How about that?
Well, we're fortunate right now because the wind farms that we're talking about probably will not come into use and hit our tax base until probably 2027 to 2030, just depending on when they get completed. And when you consider that we started our other wind farms in 2020, that gives us kind of spread things out, so the depreciation is not going to hit us all at once. So we're going to continue to have revenues coming in. But in general, the depreciation time on those is 20 years. But what we're seeing now is some of the wind farms that were put in 20 years ago, and it was mostly a little further north in Illinois. If you go up I-55, they're starting to retrofit those with new turbines and to make them, again, while they're updating them so they continue to produce. So you expect by the time 20 years goes through, you'll lose a little less than half of the value of them as far as EAV goes. And we do have to plan for that. We have conversations all the time about maintaining our district so that when the wind farms aren't here, that we're not left with a void that doesn't allow us to keep our way of life as it is.
Right.
And we also know that we have to build up our reserves in that time to make sure that we can function as a school district. And then we're also looking for ways to increase EAV other ways. I think Mount Pulaski is an incredible community. It's a great place, and I think it's set for growth, but we need some development to go on. And so we're having conversations with city leaders and the banks and, just hoping that we can develop some permanent EAV, put some homes up and some things that are going to allow us to continue to grow, and not necessarily in size so much as it is just in the value of our community.
That is Mr. Fred Lamkey, Superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools. A couple of things, Mr. Lamkey. You mentioned reserves there. I'm sure you don't want to be spending all this money. You want to put a little bit away for a rainy day. No pun intended, as it is a rainy day today. But all that aside, Mr. Lamkey, how is that process going? How are your reserves at this point?
Well, the state recommends that school districts maintain 6 months of expenditures in the reserve. And that's our goal right now. We want to keep 6 months. Now, right now, we are over 6 months in our ed fund, but that's because we're getting ready for a big project next summer that we're going to spend that excess. So we want to try to maintain that 6 months reserve in every one of our funds that we need to keep that in. And that way we do have the cushion we need. And if another pandemic hits, or if a time when the tax dollars fall off, or when our EAV starts to depreciate, it allows us to have that cushion so we can maintain what's going on. But we definitely don't, right now, we don't want to build up our reserves much beyond that, because we want to be very transparent with the taxpayers that we're not just saving that money, that money that we have coming in, if we are saving it like this year, it's for a project coming down the road that will be spent to better our community and our school district. So there's a fine line you need to balance there between how much money you keep in reserve and how you're efficiently using taxpayer dollars. So that's something we're always considerate of.
It's funny you said that, because I was curious as we're talking here this morning. Your investment, your multi-million-dollar investment into your facilities is somewhat of a long-term commitment to them. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna tear them down and rebuild. But I wonder, given their age, was that and the influx of revenue you've had the last several years? It looks like more of that to come. Was that ever a consideration to say, hey, let's get by? And let's maybe find some land, let's tear down and just kind of partially rebuild. Was that ever part of the conversation, Mr. Lamkey?
Well, it was actually part of the plan when we did the high school, because we tore down the 1912 and the 1926 portions of the high school and rebuilt on the same spot. So there we did get to a point where the high school building, it didn't make financial or structural sense to keep that building alive. And then we're at a place right now, and it's a crossroad where we're asking those questions at our grade school. We have a 1950 wing in our grade school. We have a 1960s, 70s wing. We have early 1970s. And so we've got an aged building here with some parts that are coming up on 70 years old. And our question is, how much money do we put into renovations? And then when do we start considering building new?
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have the 1970s edition, the funky little pod that, back when octagon shapes were really cool in schools, and I guess it looks nice on the outside, but doesn't make for very good use of space on the inside. And so we're asking ourselves about the functionality of these things too. So the board in the next couple of years, we're going to be developing a plan for how we move forward with the grade school, because we know we want to update it. We know we need some new space in this building. And as that part of that tearing part of the building down and adding new, our architects tell us that our building's very sound. We do have some asbestos abatement we need to do, but that's that's a balancing act of what's the best use of taxpayer dollars. And I'm very happy to say our board really takes that seriously, and we don't make quick decisions. We're really planning for the future on that.
Sure. Very good. Well, that's kind of what's next. It's exciting to be in Mount Pulaski. And, I've joked with a few folks, Mr. Lamkey, that are stepping aside. You really ought to just stick around and see some of these things out. You really should.
It's really, that's one of the, beyond the people in Mount Pulaski, that's one of the toughest things to do when you just look to the horizon. There's so many great things going on that you'd like to hang around and be a part of it. But at the same time, it might be time for a new set of eyes to come into the district and give them a little different leadership. If you say so.
Very good. Well, Mr. Lamkey, let's take a break here. My good friend, come back with some more. Fred Lamkey, superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools, is my guest on the phone. More to come with him on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW.
LFB.org.
Let's check the markets now on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jim Taylor. Corn, beans, and wheat all trading lower. December corn down 3.5, 478 3/4. March corn down 3 1/4, 493 1/2. May corn 502 down 3.5. November beans 1304 1/4, down 15 3/4. January beans down 15 1/2, 1320 3/4. March beans 1333 down 13 3/4. December wheat 583 down 5 3/4. March wheat down 5 1/4. 609 1/2. October bean meal 392.70 down 450. October bean oil 60.70 up 2 cents. Livestock market at this hour. September feeders 253.32 down 85 cents. October live cattle 185.62 down $1.15. October lean hogs 84.42 down $1.35. Energy market November crude oil 90.44 up 78 cents. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio.
Looking for new Buick inventory? This is Scott Baum from Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton. We have Buick inventory in stock and inbound. Many models to choose from, like the Buick GX, the Buick Envision, and the Buick Enclave. This month, take advantage of $1,000 trade assistance plus an extra $500 for Friends of Ag, all on new Buicks. Come see our staff for details. BaumChevyBuick.com. Right from the start.
CEO Paul Scarron here from Warner Hospital and Health Services in Clinton. Our trained physical therapists offer quality, compassionate care close to home. Find out more by clicking our icon at DeWittDailyNews.com.
For the latest in Central Illinois agricultural news, visit IllinoisFarmRadio.com. Get updated information on markets, weather, ag news, local interviews with NAFB farm broadcaster Jared White, and much, much more. All at IllinoisFarmRadio.com.
Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube. It's brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Fred Lamkey is the superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools, my guest on the phone for this morning. Mr. Lamkey, you have a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind security system you've recently put into your school building. Tell me about what's going on. What is this?
Yeah, it's not one of a kind nationally, but I don't know any school districts in our area that have this. It's the system's called Zero Eye, and we're very in tune with school safety in Mount Pulaski. We have a full-time SRO officer, Sergeant Josh Ferris with the Logan County Sheriff's Office, who's just outstanding. But then also our board president is a sergeant in the Illinois State Police. So our focus on school safety, I would say, is as sharp as any district in the state. And Josh and Eric, our board president, brought to the board this video system. It's actually a system that works with your surveillance system. It's called Zero Eye. And it was there's actually, if you go to NBC News, they actually did a national story on it. And what this does is it's a system that's been developed by the military that uses surveillance cameras to identify weapons. So in our buildings, we have 114 cameras in 2 buildings in Mount Pulaski. And this system that we're going to be putting in will allow any one of those cameras to identify that a weapon has been brandished, and it instantly goes to the Zero Eyes Command Center, who instantaneously contacts the authorities in Logan County and gives them the eyes and information about what's going on. So, for example, if somebody walked up with a weapon brandished coming up to one of our buildings, before they ever got to the door, Zero Eyes will be calling the authorities to get people en route. And oftentimes we know that, like, you know, in a situation like that, seconds make a huge difference. And it's, you know, in the minute that may take that person to get in the building, and the time it may take a school personnel to call the police and get through dispatch and go through, you know, we're going to be time ahead of it at that point in time. And if the weapon gets brandished in the building, they can actually follow the person with the weapon through the building and know exactly where they are. So it gives our authorities the eyes in the building to know what's going on, what part of the building's hot, and what's safe. We saw this at our August board meeting, and we approved it just at our September board meeting just on Monday. And we went a 5-year contract with this, and we look at it as kind of an insurance and assurance program. And I say assurance because it's allowing us to know that we're probably buying a system that we hope and should never have to use, but it gives us that assurance that if something never happens, we're doing as much as we can to keep our students and our buildings and our staff and the community safe. And it's a pretty special program. It's pretty neat, and we're excited to get it installed and get it going on this year.
So how'd you get connected to this one, Mr. Lamkey, and why this much of an investment into security at your schools? Not to suggest it isn't necessary. That's not at all what I'm trying to say, but how about that? How'd you get connected to this, and why this investment?
Again, it came through Sergeant Callan in Illinois State Police, who's our board president, and in his work with also Sergeant Ferris of Logan County. They came across this together, and we looked at it by ourselves, and we said, hey, this is a pretty interesting system. And when we presented it to the board, it was impressive. When they show you what this does, you can't help but be impressed by it. And we took a month to sit on this, and we came back this month. And the big conversation I had with our board, I said, this is opportunity cost. You have to understand 1 year of this system in your building is $60,000, and that's renewable every year. If you do a 5-year contract, you get it for $38,000 a year. And one of our board members, Doug Martin, came out and said, you know, that's $70 a kid a year to make sure they're as safe as they can be. And we really just considered, what are we going to be giving up? And then what would we lose if we didn't install this system? And again, you hope you never have to, but that assurance and knowing that we do have the resources that we can do this, and we can get it installed and keep our buildings safer, that's the route that our board just felt they had to go. And again, and I know what you're talking about too, Seth. You know, we could put razor wire around the building, metal detectors in every place, armed guards. There's a million things you could do to invest in the safety of your students. But I think you got to look at it and go, what's good use of public money? And the board really felt like this was good use. It wasn't intrusive. It doesn't give anybody an unsafe feeling in the building, or a guarded feeling in the building, like with fences or wires or metal detectors. It's this unseen protection that just kind of lies there if you need it.
Mr. Lamkey, AI comes with a lot of concern, I think, for folks, given the nature of the ability to fabricate the appearance of things and those that sort of stuff with, just how advanced it is early on in its development. How about those concerns as it relates to this?
Well, actually, AI is a huge part of this, because one thing that's continually being done is that as new weapons are identified, and it's not just talking about sidearms and rifles and assault weapons and things like that, but it's also talking about knives and other things that can be brandished. And we did take that in consideration, but I think the faith that we have in this is that this came out of the military, and this is being done by people who were in the military and who are with police authorities and things like that. So they're at the top of the game with this, and that it's monitored 24 hours a day. And again, we don't know what AI can do for our future. I mean, it's changing every day, but right now the AI is what's allowing us to do this and allow us to keep kids safe.
Sure. Mr. Lamkey, I hate to do this to you, sir. I got to let you go for the day. Where do folks go to learn about all things Mount Pulaski Schools?
But we got great web pages in Mount Pulaski, so we'll look up our grade school or our high school to check those things out. Also, we're out on Facebook with the grade school and high school, so just search for Mount Pulaski Grade School, Mount Pulaski High School, and keep up with all things Mount Pulaski sports on Twitter at MPATHDIR. That's Mount Pulaski Athletic Director, and our new athletic director, Mr. Cavalman's doing an awesome job getting information out there, promoting the district.
Fantastic stuff. That's Mr. Fred Lamkey, Superintendent of Mount Pulaski Schools. Network News on the way.
The Big 1520 WHOW Clinton, 92.3 FM, W222 BG Clinton, 106.5 FM, W293 DJ Normal Bloomington.
And Democrats on Capitol Hill. The visit comes as President Biden looks to send tens of billions of dollars more to Ukraine.
President Biden is seeking an additional $24 billion in military and humanitarian aid for Ukraine, but approval of that request is in doubt because of a growing partisan divide in Congress. Some House Republicans want to cut U.S. assistance, and Speaker Kevin McCarthy prefers that Ukraine aid be debated as a standalone bill.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston back in Ukraine. There were Russian missile strikes across the country overnight. The attacks left at least 2 people dead. House Republicans, members of the Judiciary Committee, grill Attorney General Garland on allegations of political weaponization of the Department of Justice.
The Attorney General indicated he couldn't remember speaking to anyone at the FBI about the Bureau's Hunter